What's up guys? This is Alex, and today we're going to be playing Genshin Impact, and we're bringing you guys a guide on Fischl. Now, who is Fischl? She's actually pretty amazing electro archer. You can actually use as a reaction DPS or engager. Now, some people would actually might want to try and play her as a main DPS. Personally, I do not recommend that. I'll go through the guide, and you guys can judge for yourself which role you want Fischl to play in your squad. So you can do normal attacks and just charge attacks as well. And what makes Fischl really shine is this Raven that you can actually press E and then he's gonna do some damage and you can actually swap to other characters and he's still gonna remain on the battlefield and still gonna do damage to the enemies. So this is the main reason why Fischl is such a good secondary support DPS. The Raven just does damage without needing anything. And it's actually pretty strong. If you use the E ability again, whenever the Raven is summoned, he's going to teleport to your location, which can be convenient if he's out of positioning. But it will require you to swap back to Fischl to do this. It's also important to note that whenever you summon the Raven, he's actually going to do a bit of damage to the surrounding enemies, so that's pretty nice. Personally, I do not use Fischl as a main DPS. I mean, she could be doing decent amount of like range damage if you really wanted to, if you use like maybe a rust weapon or something like that, but I would much prefer to just swap out to another character and continue dishing out damage while the Raven supports me as a DPS. As for Fischl's ultimate, it's actually really useful. If you have the crow, like over here for example, and then the crow lasts I think like 10 seconds, so let's say I bring it back over here. If you ult, you're actually gonna do a one-time amount of big damage and increase your movement speed to the enemies by turning to Raven, but you're also going to extend the duration of the Raven. Now, if we go through my Fischl's stats, right now she's level 60. She has decent HP, I guess, and her attack is about just 1,000. So right now my Fischl is not even that strong. Like, she's just like a reaction DPS that I'm using just to synergize well with my team and just add a bit of DPS. If we look at her weapon, she's using the stringless. Its refined rank is level 3 right now, and what this does is increase elemental skill elemental burst damage by 36%. This makes the stringless a perfect bow for Fischl to play the exact role that I've been showing you guys, just to be a support DPS. Now this bow gives a decent amount of base attack and also gives elemental mastery. If we go to the artifacts, in this case I'm trying to really give a little bit of crit, attack percentage, flat attack, and even some crit damage if you can actually get a decent amount of crit rate. What other stats would you be looking for? Definitely anything that gives you elemental electro damage. In my case, I don't really have any good pieces for electro damage, so I'm giving her attack percentage items. So if we go to for every slot, just giving her the flower that has the most offensive stat that makes sense for her. Right now the flower is just +0, but eventually it'll get there. Obviously her gear is a bit less good than my Razor, for example, because he's my main DPS, so he's the one that's get all the cool loot, you know. For the feather, she's using a max level feather, obviously, because all that attack is really going to help. And if you can get some interesting stuff here, like crit damage, for example, and a little bit of elemental mastery, it's actually going to be pretty useful. Try to complete as many set pieces as possible, but usually it can be a little bit tricky when you do this for like secondary characters that are a bit less important to your rotation, to your team, just because they don't get as much love as your main and secondary DPS, for example. For a third slot, or the cup, I'm actually giving her another attack percentage item. However, this one is not upgraded at all because I've been kind of running out of artifact materials to just upgrade everything ever since I've started getting 5-star items. Finally, she's using another attack percentage artifact that's giving a whole lot of this stat, so this really helps to boost her overall damage, and that includes the crow's damage as well. Now finally, for the battle mask, I'm giving her a berserker battle mask, not only for the 2 set piece crit rate bonus, but also because the piece has crit rate on it, so that means that my Fischl actually has a really decent crit rate. If we go look at her details real quick, we're going to see all the bonuses that she gets. So she's about 1,000 attack, which is decent. 200 elemental mastery, which can be useful if you're going to be fighting like water or like fire slimes or any other creatures that are of this elements. Crit rate is 40%, so it's getting in the upper tier slowly. Her crit damage is 62%, a little bit lower than I would want, but I mean, a lot of her artifacts are still lower levels, so it's going to pick up eventually, possibly, depending on what rolls on the items every 4 levels. And now, so the rest of her stats are actually not that great. What I would really like to have gotten personally would have been electro damage bonus. I feel that this would have really synergized well with this character for the role that I wanted to play in my team. Now if we go to the talent, the first one is the basic attack, just your 5 consecutive shots and your charge attacks for electro damage. So that's just the useful stuff. If we go to Knight Rider, this is the main ability of the character in my opinion. So it's the Raven that basically just stays there and does damage, electro damage in a small AoE whenever you're gonna pop it, and also like it's just gonna continually shoot at whatever enemies that are close. You can also press E again just to resummon it to your location, like I was saying a little bit earlier. Now these are the stats of Oz, which is the Raven. The summoning damage is attack damage, and the duration, which is 10 seconds. The cooldown is 25 seconds, so it is a pretty long cooldown. However, what you can do, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, is that you can actually use your ultimate to refresh the cooldown of the Raven. The ultimate has a 15-second cooldown, but does require 60 energy cost, so unless you have a whole lot of energy recharge, you're not going to really benefit from that 15-second cooldown. The way that this ability works is that you're going to transform into a Raven, you're going to have increased movement speed, and you're going to do a whole lot of electro damage. However, this can only trigger once on enemies, but it will trigger AoE or across multiple enemies that are close. Now at the end of your ultimate, Oz is actually going to stay on the field and continue dealing damage, and if he was already on the field, it's going to be extended, like I was saying. Now this passive talent, Stellar Predator, we actually don't really use it all that much. It might be useful for people that want to try and main Fischl as a main DPS. Fischl. You can actually do a fully charged aim shot at Oz, and it's going to do AoE electoral damage equal to 152% of the arrow's damage. At Character Ascension Phase 4, so basically level 70, if a character triggers an electro-related elemental reaction when Oz is on the field, the enemy will be stricken with Thundering Retribution, dealing electro damage equal to 80% of Fischl's attack. Finally, her passive is when dispatched on expedition. She's going to do it faster. We don't really care about that. Now for the constellations. The first one is Gaze of the Deep. Even when Oz is not present in combat, he can still catch over Fischl's through his Raven eyes. When Fischl attacks enemy, Oz fires a joint attack, dealing 22% of attack damage. Now this could be useful for a main DPS Fischl, but for the role that she's currently playing, it's not as useful in my opinion. Devourer of All Sin, when the Knight Rider is used, it deals an additional 200% attack as damage, and its AoE increased by 50%. So this is extremely good. If you can get at least 2 Constellation on Fischl, it's really going to increase her overall utility in your team. Wings of Nightmare just increased the Knight Rider level by 3, so that's pretty fantastic. Her Pilgrimage of Bleak, when Midnight Phantasmagoria is used, it deals 222% of attack as electro damage to the surrounding enemies, and when the skill duration ends, Fischl regenerates 20% of her HP. So these are useful a little bit, but not as useful as the Devourer of All Sins. Now, Against the Fling Light also increased the ultimate by 3 levels, so that's cool. And finally, the last one is Evernight Raven. Now, this is going to be useful to both someone that wants to main Fischl as a main DPS, but also to people that are going to use her as a reaction DPS. So it increases the duration of Oz summoning by 2 seconds. So this is especially useful for everyone that's going to use Fischl, obviously. And then also additionally, Oz attack with the current character when present, dealing 30% of Fischl's attack as electro damage. So this is more for people that want to try to main Fischl as a main DPS. Now, assuming that you would want to main Fischl as a main DPS as not as a reaction DPS, one of the bow that I could recommend is actually the Rust bow. Increase the normal attack damage by 40%, but does decrease the aim shot damage by 10%. So, and you can refine this obviously multiple times, well up to 5 times actually, and every time you do, it's going to give you 10% more normal attack damage. So it does add up quite a bit. Alright guys, so I hope that this guide was actually helpful to you guys and will help you make a decision between if you want to make her a main DPS or if you want to use her as a reaction or more like as a support DPS in your team. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. You can also join us on our Discord. The link is in the description box, guys. Thank you and have a good day.